Welcome to Money with Jackson, where I teach you personal finance through real conversations with real people using their real financial scenarios. I'm your host, Jackson Larimer. Now for today's episode.
So I get your weekly emails, right?
Yeah.
And for a couple weeks, you've been like, oh, I'm going to do something special for week 100. I'm like, oh, awesome. I wonder what it's going to be. Like, this is going to be so cool. And then year 101 comes out. I read it and it was like, oh, I'm the surprise for week 100. That's what I was looking forward to. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah. Week 100 was that I was going to start recording and publishing live coaching calls. So you're the surprise.
Yeah, it just made me laugh. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, but it was great.
If you'd like to join my newsletter, you can do so for free at jacksonlarimer.com. I'll include the link in the description below the video. Well, let's go ahead and jump into things. So it's been 2 weeks since the last time we met. And when we last spoke, we were talking about your overall financial picture. We looked at your balance sheet together. And we also talked about some of your financial goals that you have, with two relevant ones right now being the graduate program and then also purchasing a second vehicle for your family. So that's where we're picking up today, is mapping out the cost of your graduate program and putting together a plan for paying for it. And then hopefully wrapping up that topic and getting more into the car purchase as well.
Perfect. Sounds great. We also have some updates to the car conversation that we can get into once we get past the grad stuff. So, little teaser for you.
Perfect. And before we jump in here, do you have any specific questions that you want me to answer for you, or anything you want to make sure we address tonight?
No, not off the top of my head. I'm sure I'll bring it up when we get there. So,
Sounds good. Let's go ahead and start with the grad program. And just to recap what we've got so far. So total program cost, $26,000. $5,000 will probably be covered as a gift from a family member, which leaves us with a remaining balance of $21,000. And we're going to figure out how to pay for that today. So in our last conversation, I had left you with an action item to go gather the relevant information of when the payments are due for your graduate program. What did you find out?
yeah, so knowing that this is recorded and published was a great motivator to complete my homework.
Good.
Yeah, so it looks like they charge per like semester. And so there's like a fall semester, then a spring semester, and then a summer semester. And then they charge per credit hour. And so generally it looks like I'll be taking like 12 to 16 credit hours per semester. It kind of is depending on how quick I want to go through the program, which is not a decision I've made yet. So that is kind of still up in the air. But then there's payment. I think it's like February and June and like October or something are the three different payment times for each semester. And so the first payment that I'll have to pay is February, mid-February. I think it's February 20th or something. And then the cost per credit, it's like $363 a credit. And so I did the math and I'd be spending somewhere between $4,000 to $6,000 per like each time I have to submit a payment.
Okay. So $4,000 to $6,000
3 times a year, basically.
3 times a year, which $4,000 3 times a year would be 12, times 2 would be 24, which is right about in line with the total cost of your program. So that makes sense. Okay, good. Great job. Thanks for finding that out. Whenever I think about paying for things in my own life, I try and break it into net worth and cash flow. And you'll probably notice this about my coaching style, that whenever we're trying to make any financial decision, I always break it into net worth and cash flow. Basically, what that means is you can pay for something with resources that you already have, or you can pledge future resources to paying for something. So, for example, looking back at your balance sheet, you've got a CD of $25,000 currently. If you were to pay for your graduate program out of your balance sheet or out of your net worth, so to speak, you could basically use the CD and cover the full cost of your program. But there might be an argument against doing that because you want to preserve some savings for other goals you have or just for emergency expenses, etc. And that introduces the second part of the equation, which is the cash flow of, how much can I save along the way to pay for this? Have you thought about how much you would be willing to use out of your current savings for your graduate program?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I definitely have thought about that. Right now, my monthly budget, we are saving like relatively aggressively. And so if I were to assume like I'm still putting the same amount of money into my Roth IRA and all of that, and then I'm just not trying to save anything extra because I have so much to spend. Like month to month, I've been saving about $500. Every month is kind of where we're at right now. And so I assumed that would go, I guess my initial assumption was I would take that $500 and put it towards the grad school costs.
Hmm.
And then that, I think if you average it out, was basically half of it. And then the other $500 per month average, I would probably be pulling from the like my savings.
Okay, perfect. The good news is you've set yourself up pretty well here, where it's not rocket science to figure out how to pay for your graduate degree. I was thinking the exact same thing as you. If it's $4,000 every 4 months, that's $1,000 per month that you need for your graduate program, $500 from savings, $500 from that current month cash flow, which would mean that you would need about $13,000, give or take, of current savings to be allocated towards the graduate program. Okay, so if we look at your current savings, you've got your money market account with $20,700, and you've also got this $25,000 CD. When does that CD mature that you have access to it?
Yeah, it's a 9 month certificate. It was started in July. So April is when that will be available.
Okay, perfect. So not for the first payment, but for future payments, you will be able to access it.
Yeah, and I don't know. I was thinking because like I have a better rate right now from the CD than from the money market, and so I would probably prefer to pull from the money market and then just like reinvest my like in another certificate once that expires. Was kind of my initial thought. I don't know what you think about that. I don't know exactly what the rates are right now, but I think the CD is closer to like 4% and the money market's closer to 2% or something.
Okay. 2% sounds a little bit low for the money market account. I'm thinking we could probably make some changes where you could get a rate closer to 4% in a money market account or a high yield savings account, which would give you the ability to have greater flexibility in your financial plan while still earning a similar interest rate.
Okay, I did find that if you want me to tell you what. So it looks like the money market, the amount, like the APY is based on how much is in it, and based on how much I currently have in it, it's giving me an annual percentage yield of 1.3%. So less than I thought.
Okay. And what institution is that with?
It's with America First Credit Union.
Okay.
So if I put $1 million in, I'd have a 4%. But
Okay. And with America First Credit Union, does it show you what the money's invested in, or is it more just like a fixed rate schedule they have where it's, however much you contribute, this is the rate that you're going to earn?
yeah, that's what it gives me.
Okay. I want to give you a couple alternatives to consider here that would probably give you some better flexibility. The first route you could consider is a high yield savings account. I use one called Wealthfront. There's lots of them out there. and they all earn pretty similar interest rates. Just happens to be the case that I use one called Wealthfront because I like it, and I'm earning 4.25%.
Wow,
But
that's crazy.
yeah, that's money that I can transfer at any time to my checking account.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's way better. That would be pretty significant, I think. So that's really good to know.
Yeah. The other option you could consider is a different money market fund. And how you could do this is just as an example, you could open a taxable brokerage account with, Fidelity or another investment firm. And I want to say those are earning around 3.5% right now. So we can definitely get a better return for you without having to lock your money up in a CD.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good to know. I think that's something earlier we had talked about bringing up those kind of strategies in like another conversation. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna want to dig more into that because yeah, like just the normal checking account is like a 0.4% or something horrible. And so when I found out the money market I could be getting nearly 2%, I was like, what a steal. But that's crazy that there's like 4% high yield savings out there.
Yeah. I think that's going to make a lot of sense for you to move your money to a location where it's earning more interest. Want to give you a couple nuances to consider here. So, the first one is FDIC insurance, and this basically means, if the bank were to fail, is your money guaranteed by the government, and that's what's called FDIC insurance. So it adds an extra layer of security there. Some money market funds offer FDIC insurance, some do not. Whereas if you have a high yield savings account, there's a good bet that you're going to have FDIC insurance in place well above what you need. I think I have up to $5 million of FDIC insurance for my high yield savings account.
Yeah, I think that would just about cover me there.
Just about cover you,
Yeah, yeah, just a little wiggle room.
at least for the next month or so, right?
Yeah, yeah, until I win the lottery.
Okay, so would you feel comfortable changing institutions in order to get a better rate on your money here?
Yeah, for sure I would, and I think that's something to dig into. I've always just gone with the same institution. I mean, they've been pretty easy to work with. I've got all my money with them. It's just simple. And that's kind of why I haven't, just like the ease is why I've been stuck with them. But I'm super open to pivoting. I think as well, like hopefully we can have a conversation at some point about like different credit cards or something. We've talked about like I just have one credit card with no real benefits to it. Again, it's just kind of been like I don't really use it much. It's mainly just to build my credit. But I think I could be playing that game better as well. So I would definitely be down to looking at ways to make make it a little bit more robust to the money game I'm playing, I guess.
Okay, perfect. I think that'll be a great conversation to have. Maybe on our next call, we can talk about your financial systems and how to optimize them to get you the most bang for your buck.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Definitely
Okay,
excited for that.
we'll put a pin in that conversation. What I was going to ask you next is, as we're thinking about your savings, we want to make sure you have enough of a buffer for an emergency fund. So, with that in mind, what is your total spending rate on a monthly basis? Include all of your expenses. How much do you spend as a family?
Yeah, that's a great question. Generally, the spending rate is around $3,500 a month.
Wow, that's really good. You guys are
So
frugal.
we are quite frugal. Anyone who knows me well would laugh about how frugal I am. So yeah, but
Okay.
we've got a good deal for rent. So we're paying just barely over $1,000 for rent right now for a two-bedroom apartment, which is a screaming deal in the middle of Provo. So that helps.
Yeah, that is a screaming deal. Nice. Okay, so 3,500 a month, and just based on how relatively low that number is for a whole family, I'm guessing you probably don't have a lot of discretionary funding that, given an emergency, you'd be cutting out of your budget.
No, I mean, like I said, we save like $500 a month. So that, like, for emergencies that have come up or stuff like random medical bills or whatever, like, we kind of pull from there first.
Mhm.
Um, so We do have wiggle room, if that's what you're saying.
When we think about calculating an emergency fund, usually you think of it in terms of the number of months of expenses that you can cover, right? So 3 months, 6
Gotcha.
months,
Yeah.
but it depends which number you use, if you're using your current spending rate or if you're using what's considered, maybe your essential spending like housing, groceries, utilities, all of those things that it would be pretty drastic to cut those out of your spending versus more discretionary spending like family activities, etc.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're basically saying that how much of that spending is something that could be trimmed?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
let's say you lost your job tomorrow, would you still be spending $3,500 a month as a family, or would you be spending 2,500 or 3,000?
It's funny. I actually had a conversation like this with my wife just the other day, so that's good timing. I think we could probably trim by a few hundred
Okay,
for sure. I do not think we could get below 3,000 a month. So, probably closer to 3 grand, maybe 31, 3,200.
okay, we'll say $3,200. And there's a lot of different advice out there about how much of an emergency fund you should have. Here's how I think about it. Your emergency fund should reflect the amount of risk that you have in your financial situation. And I'll give you some examples on opposite ends of the spectrum here. If you are maybe you're a married couple with two incomes, no kids, you're very willing to relocate for work, you're both young and healthy, and you rent instead of owning a home, you've already got a good amount of flexibility built into your financial situation where you probably don't need as large of an emergency fund because if one of you lost your job, the other person's still making money, etc.
Yeah, that makes sense.
On the opposite end of the spectrum would be you're married, you have several kids, there's only one income in the household, you're not willing to relocate for employment, you have a chronic medical condition, you have outstanding debt that you're working to pay off, you own a home, maybe it's an older home that requires frequent repairs. There's just a lot more natural risk in your situation that you're going to need a much larger emergency fund to protect yourself because it's way more likely that something is going to happen. So, given your family situation, I'd say you're maybe a little bit closer to that high risk side, not because you've made bad financial decisions, but just because you're married, you have a kid, you have a single income for your household, and those are going to add some, extra precautions that you want to take, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I'd agree.
Okay. So if we think of endpoints for emergency funds, on the slim side would be around 3 months, and on the beefy side would be around 12 months. What do you think feels appropriate given your situation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously 12 months sounds awesome, but I don't know if my situation warrants that. Currently, I think I would definitely feel most comfortable not dipping below a 6 month
Okay.
emergency fund. And so, if possible, I'd like to keep that as a minimum emergency fund.
Okay, so let's do some. I think it comes out to be 19,200, but let me just make sure here. So 3,200 times six, 19,200. So basically $20,000 for your
Cool.
emergency fund.
Yeah.
So going back to, and this is actually going to lead into our conversation about purchasing a car, which is why we're going through all this.
Perfect.
If we go back to your balance sheet here, okay, we've got $50,000 of cash. This $5,000, I'm assuming you just use that on a monthly basis. That's what comes in and out for your bills.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so we'll say you have $45,000 in cash. Subtract 20,000 from that from your emergency fund. So you've got uh, $25,000 left, and then you subtract another 13,000 for your graduate program. That basically means you have a remaining $12,000 of cash that you can use to allocate towards other financial priorities that you have once we've factored in the emergency fund and the graduate program. Making sense so far?
Yeah, it does. I haven't looked at it that way. It's a good perspective.
Yeah, it's this idea. I read a book once. If you're familiar with the You Need a Budget budgeting app, he actually wrote a book as well, which I read. And he talks about give every dollar a job. The danger that some people fall into with savings is that it gives them a false sense of security, right? You see a really big number and you're like, oh, that could cover anything. But then once you start thinking about your financial priorities, you're like, oh, most of that is already accounted for.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's actually funny. I almost had the opposite thought as you were going through it. I'm like, "Oh, wow, I've got more room to, like, spend stuff than I thought."
Good. So it's
So,
enlightening. That's good.
yeah.
Okay. I think that's a perfect segue into our next topic here, which is talking about purchasing a second vehicle, because that lays the groundwork for us. And you mentioned you have some updates for me. I'd love to hear
I
them.
do. So, my update is that we got rear-ended last week, which no one was hurt, so that's okay. The car is in the shop right now, and the insurance is still considering if it's a total loss or not. So they're trying to decide if they're going to total the car.
Okay. That's
So,
a
which sucks, but whatever. Um, so probably not the update you were looking for, but here we are. Um, anyway,
probably not
so
the update you were looking
yeah,
for.
tell me about it for sure. So, right now we're just waiting. If the insurance just decides to pay for the repairs, then great. Really, we're not in any different of a situation. Just a little bit of an inconvenience, but we'll have our car back. It'll be fine. If they decide to total it, though, that's where they will probably just give us cash for the market value of the car. The problem is we don't have a great car, and so it won't be a lot of money. And so the question that we've been debating, me and my wife, is do we buy another beater car basically to enable us to buy a second car sooner, or do we use this money as an opportunity to get a bit of an upgrade and then postpone buying a second car? Which I don't know. We're kind of still on the fence on, but I think that's kind of what we're looking at. Obviously, it depends if they decide to total it or not. Um, I think the market value of the car would probably come in around $8,000. So it's a 2010 RAV4 with like 115,000 miles on it. So decent car. I love it. I mean, it's Toyota. It would probably would have lasted another 5 years for sure. Um, but having a car like that you know is good is different than buying a car that's a
Yeah.
2010 with 100,000 plus miles on it, you know? So I don't know. It's not like I don't love the idea of just putting the amount of money we get into buying a car that's completely covered by that money that I don't know. It's a little scary buying a car that old. I don't know though. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. First off, I'm really sorry to hear that you got in a car accident. That's no fun.
Yeah, I don't appreciate it.
And I can completely relate to you in the sense that that 2010 RAV4 was probably worth more to you than it's worth on paper. My wife and
Absolutely.
I, we had a very similar situation about 3 years ago where her car was totaled. It was a 2002 Toyota Avalon,
Yeah.
not worth very much at all on
So,
paper.
yeah.
It had basically spent most of its life well cared for in her grandmother's garage that didn't drive it very much. And then she bought it from her grandmother. And so it was in really good condition and had a lot of life left. Similar thing for us where it was like, man, that cash value just didn't feel like what the car was worth to us.
Yeah, that's funny. Almost the exact same situation. I bought this car from my grandparents who did not drive it very much. So I know it's been well maintained throughout its whole life.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a funny
So,
coincidence.
yeah, it is. So you're the right person to talk to.
Yeah. Okay. A couple things to share. So, just, from personal experience, ours actually ended up getting totaled, and the insurance company made us a cash offer. We disputed the offer, and we actually got them to increase it by about $1,500. and it took me maybe 2 hours of work. I just had to compile some evidence of comparables that I found for sale online and prove to them that I thought it was worth more. They agreed with me and we came to a settlement. 2 hours of work saved me, it was like $1,500 to $2,000. So it was very
Yeah,
much my
it's pretty
time.
valuable couple of hours.
Yeah. So just a little piece of information for you there. If the
That's
insurance
good to know.
company calls you this week, maybe don't accept the first offer they give you because you might be able to dispute it and get a little bit more for what the car is worth.
Okay, yeah, that's great advice.
Okay. So keep that in mind. And if you get into that situation, you can shoot me a text message and I can coach you through what we did that helped a lot.
Cool, I appreciate that. Thank you.
The bigger question is, um, if the car does get totaled, and I think this is really the crux of what you're asking me here is, do we get a similar car as a replacement, kind of a beater car in your words, or do we get something a little bit newer slash a little bit of an upgrade?
Yeah, pretty much. That is the ultimate question because I figure the better of an upgrade we get, the harder it will be to buy a second car. So, kind of weighing those is where we're at right now.
Okay. Here's my candid thoughts. Is there any sort of situation where when you talk about having two cars as a family, it would be two beater cars, or is your goal to have at least one that's reliable and maybe one that's an older one? You know, if it breaks down for a few days, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, no, I definitely think if we get a second car, we want one of them to be decent, pretty decent. Like, yeah, and that's kind of what we were trying to save for is something a little bit nicer, a little newer, more reliable. So yeah, I don't think we would want to buy like two 2010 RAV4s or anything like that.
Yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense to have at least one car that's reliable. It doesn't mean you go buy a brand new convertible,
Yeah.
but something that has lower mileage, that's maybe a little bit newer, that a model that has a good track record for reliability. With that thought in mind, you've got $12,000 in your cash savings that is not currently allocated towards another financial goal. And if you also have $8,000 from the cash value of the vehicle, that would give you a budget of $20,000 in cash that you could potentially use to purchase another car. In my mind, if you know you want at least one reliable car, it probably makes sense for that to be the first one you purchase so that there's no disruption in your normal life because it could be another 6 months before you buy a second car. And it would really suck to buy one that had a lot of issues for those 6 months.
It's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about it that way. For some reason, I don't know, buying a nicer car first never crossed my mind. So it's a good point. That's something to think about for sure.
Yeah. What are your wife's thoughts on the situation?
Um, we're pretty much on the same page. Where like a second car would be a great asset to improve her freedom day to day. But neither of us feel like it's a necessity. Like if we had to go another year with one car, we're both on the same page that like totally doable. We've got a park a block away from our home, we've got a library a block away from our home, we've got a grocery store 3 blocks away from our home. Like a lot of things can be done walking, um, which is great. And so like we don't need it, but obviously it's great, when she's home with a baby to be able to get out a little bit more.
Yes, that's very important, by the way.
Yeah,
It's hard to be home by yourself all day with a toddler.
for sure. And as well, like, I mean, my commute is about 15 to 20 minutes each way. And so on days where like she really needs the car, she can drop me off at work, have the car for the day and pick me up. So that's also an option. It's just not something we do a ton because sometimes it messes with like the baby sleep schedule. It's just another extra 40 minutes on the road for the car on any given day. And so it's like we have options like this. It all comes back to like we don't need the second car in the near future. It's just it is nice to have. So
Yeah. When you're in a situation that you have a reliable income, that you are frugal with your spending, that you are debt free, and that you have a fully funded emergency fund, I think you can afford to spend some money on things that you want, even if they're not strictly in need.
you're probably right. I just am not good at spending money. I'm definitely
That's
a
why I'm here to
saver,
help you.
but yeah, perfect. No, that's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah. Okay. So let me tell you, I just want to share with you what I would do if I were in your shoes.
Yeah,
And
I'd love to hear it.
you don't have to do this. This is just where I'm, my perspective on things. If your car gets totaled, they give you a cash offer. I'd probably dispute it, see if I could get a little more money out of them. Doesn't take much work to do, and it could be, $1,000, $2,000 difference for you. Once I did that, I would prioritize getting reliable transportation for your family, even if that means spending more money than what the settlement was for the vehicle. As far as the second car goes, I think it makes a lot of sense for the reasons you've outlined to have one for your family. And interestingly enough, my wife and I, we were having these similar conversations when her car got totaled. It dropped us down to a one car family. At the time, we didn't have any kids. We made a decision for ourselves that we would try living with one car for a little while and see how it felt. And with a caveat, we also, value freedom and sometimes have different places that we need to be. And so we decided, we ran the math and decided based on the number of times that we need to have two vehicles, we could just pay for an Uber once or twice a month. And it's just like, yeah, it might be $100, but if that's cheaper than buying a second car, we're still saving money. And let's just give ourselves permission now to spend that money, no questions asked when we need it.
Interesting.
Funny enough, it's been 3 years and we've never once paid for an Uber.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy.
Yeah. Somehow, having one car, and I mean, you have one car right now, so I'm sure you're familiar with this, but we learned how to coordinate better. We learned how to communicate better where it's never really been an issue. And there's, I could probably count on, my hands the number of times that it's felt like a frustration that we haven't had two cars. With that in mind, we're actually planning to purchase a second car here soon as we have another baby and our family and needs are growing. So I think it makes a lot of sense for you to get the reliable vehicle first and then assess how things feel with your family. Maybe explore some of those alternative options of, hey, Megan, I want to help create more freedom for you. What if we started with a baby step of once or twice a month, you could pay for an Uber or something to go take the kids and do a fun activity. And in the meantime, we'll continue saving for that second vehicle with a goal in mind of purchasing one by XYZ date.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a great perspective.
Okay, awesome. I'd love to keep talking about this, but it'll probably depend on whether or not your car gets totaled.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that's big. They could call me tomorrow and say, "Ah, we're just paying for the repairs," and then all of this goes out the window. Which, in that case, honestly, still definitely the preferable outcome, in my opinion, because then I still have the what, like $12,000 that we could put towards a nicer car, which would be great.
Awesome. What other questions do you have for me today, Braden?
Um, I don't know if I have anything else. This has been super helpful. I think, I mean, it would be great next time to dig more into like what I'm doing with like money market or saving accounts or credit cards or all that. And then hopefully I'll have some sort of update on my car by then.
Yep.
Um and we could talk a little bit more about that as well. But I think this has been really, really valuable conversation. So I appreciate it. I don't have any burning questions for you right now.
Okay, perfect. Here's where we will go from here. Next week, we'll talk about financial systems. So we'll talk about your money market account. We'll talk about you mentioned your credit card strategy as well. We can cover that together too. What would be really helpful for me, action item here, is if you can just send me in an email a quick breakdown of how you currently have things set up. So, you know, checking account, name of the institution, savings account, name of the institution. Some of that I have on the financial portal. I don't think your, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think your credit card is connected.
No,
So
yeah, American First did not let me do a clean transfer, so I just manually punched the numbers in and left it at that. So I'll get you some more info.
yeah, just send it to me, like just in an email, name of the institution plus the name of the card. The interest rates as well would be helpful for the money market and the CD. That way, when we meet next, we've got that information in front of us. I can give you some options to compare, and we can talk about how to make some adjustments.
Okay, yeah, for sure. That sounds great.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, Braden. It's been great chatting with you
Okay,
today.
yeah, you as well. Hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe to the show. Also, leave a 5-star review so other people can find the show too. Thanks so much, and see you next week.